Lego.
Okay. Hey Flex fam, welcome back to another episode of Flex in the City. I'm Ghada.
And I'm Lisa, and this is episode
32.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Yeah,
Yeah?
I'm good.
You had
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I'm good. Weather is a bit better.
Yes, temperature-wise, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling like spring is coming.
The weekend
There's
was
a
so
new
nice.
energy, new beginnings, new vibes, rebirth. I love it.
Yeah, it's
Love
the
it.
only thing that makes winter actually worthwhile is this like rebirth after so many months of
Yeah.
like dreary, like yucky deadness. Like it's
I
the
love
only
that
thing that makes
transition. Like
transition is
yeah.
so beautiful
Yeah.
because it's just like
you
like
can
literally
literally breathe.
Yeah, honestly, I'm sure the trees too are like, girl, they feel you.
Thank God.
Breathe.
that was a tough one.
Yeah, we're complaining like bears have to be like in a hole for like months.
They're used to it.
Yeah,
it's like in their DNA.
Oh, but
we're
they come
not
out looking tragic. Like when they come out of hibernation, the fur's matted, like thin. It's like, oh my god.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's nice to know that spring is coming.
Yes.
So you guys, maybe you might see some future episodes back on the balcony, like.
Oh my gosh, that we need to do again because that was fun.
It was so good.
Yeah. Should we just get into it?
Let's dive in.
We are talking today about something that I think is in the back of women's minds. No. I need to get my intro right in my head. We are talking today about a topic that definitely affects a lot of women, and I'm talking about mom guilt and this feeling of never feeling good enough or that whatever we do is never enough. And it's could range from a lot of things. This guilt of wanting to take time for ourselves, always feeling like we're never doing enough for our kids, feeling like we're dropping the ball somewhere in all areas of our life, from work to family to, I mean, the list goes on, right?
Yeah.
And so I think in this conversation, there's a few things that we want to get across. Is one, you're not alone. Like, we feel you. We're there. We understand what you're going through. And also we want to just kind of like unpack where this guilt comes from, why it comes on so strongly, and just kind of really learn to step away from this impossible standard that has been put in place that we should never have been carrying in the first place.
Shouldn't have taken it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, question for you, can you recall a time when you felt that mom guilt like creeping in, and not just like a
5 minutes ago?
like a passing thought, but really actually where it affected how you saw yourself, how you looked at yourself?
Yeah, I can definitely point out one of the first times that I felt it, because it was such a foreign concept at the time, was with my first pregnancy. When I first came from Australia back to Kenya with the baby, and my parents were like, oh, she's coming with the baby, like we've set up the room, we have a nanny, like, and all of this. And I remember I told you the nanny ended up quitting because she'd be like, can I like, change his diaper? And I'm like, nah, I got it. She's like, can I give him a bath? I was like, I got it.
That's good.
And she's like, can I, like, literally the only thing I let her do, I was like, you can like wash his clothes.
Yeah.
You can like clean up after I've like fed him. And so essentially I wouldn't really let anyone do anything. And I think the reasoning was twofold. One, because obviously I had been essentially doing everything on my own for the first 3 months of his life, but also the fact that I was like, if I hand over like this task that is the essence of my motherhood, like what am I doing?
Exactly.
Like, this
then
is my role.
Failing as a mom then.
Exactly. And I think it's because I had completely redefined myself as I am the mother of this child. I am nothing else right now. Which is a normal reaction to have when you become a mother, especially a new mother for the first time. But that there's an element of something unhealthy in there, because now you're denying your identity. You existed before motherhood. And I didn't know any of this stuff. I was just kind of like, you know what? My kid is fed, he's happy, he's healthy, he's clean, he's moisturized, he's not ashy. So I'm doing good. Like, that's all I need to make sure about.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult also because, as you know, like my whole backstory there,
Right.
I was in such a mental, like an emotionally broken state at that point, that even the idea of tending to that and healing that was like completely, like, definitely not going to happen, because I have to be a mother first. There's no time for me to heal. It wasn't even like back of my mind. It was like, nah, I'll just get better, like, with time. So the guilt was not only something that I felt, or like a lot of mothers feel when you do something for yourself. It's a guilt that I think in my case, and I think a lot of other mothers can identify with, it stops you from doing things for yourself. It's like a preemptive guilt. And yeah, that was my first sort of feeling of like, oh, I can't really like do this stuff. Like, even when I went out with my friends for the first like year, they knew Lisa's coming with the stroller and the baby. Like, the good thing is my older son, sleeps through anything.
Right.
So by the time the car ride is done and I put him into the stroller and we get to the restaurant where I'm having lunch with the girls, he's knocked out and he's sleeping through the whole lunch. So I was like, listen, I can still do this 100%. But the baby's gonna be with me. Like, this is my, like, one of my friends even says, like, he was like my appendage. Like, there was nowhere you would
wherever
go that
you went, he went.
Absolutely. Like, when I was in CrossFit, they knew that he would be there. So it's yeah, it took me a while to sort of realize that there needed to be space and time for self as well. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, and I think that self-care also is so important. It's so necessary for us as moms. Like, this whole concept of where people are always like, men are always like, happy wife, happy life kind of idea. I think it actually
Facts.
Also, like, once you become a mom, like, you need to play into the whole happy mom, happy wife, happy life. Like, that is really, I think, when a mom is happy in the family, then there's peace in the house,
there's harmony.
And when when the mom is taking care of herself and really taking that time to take care of herself, like, it makes you can show up for your children in such a different way, in such a calm way, and not like this person that's on edge and disconnected from the kids and just going through the motions, but actually show up as a mother for 100%. Your kids.
I agree.
And I know I also know with you and like your backstory, like, because it was so chaotic, like, you needed some element of control and stability, and that was your way of doing it.
I was like, this I can completely foresee and predict and know exactly how it's going. And also, because I was a single mother, I was like, he ain't got nobody else. Like, I have to be so on point for him that you forget that if you're not on point, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so that took me a while to learn that. So well, how about you?
I was
your first
my first encounter with mom guilt, I was actually pregnant. And that's the funny thing, is with mom guilt can actually creep in before the baby has even arrived. So I remember being 7 months pregnant and living in Jordan. And in Jordan, we've mentioned this before, like, you send your kids to private schools, you don't send them to state schools. And I went to one of the top tier private schools to register my oldest at 7 months. And
7 months pregnant.
7 months pregnant. And the woman in the registrar's office was like, you're coming now? And I'm like, yeah. Like, I was so excited. 7 months, like, and she's like, people come as soon as they've taken the pregnancy test, but we'll take your application. And in that moment, I felt so guilty because, you want only the best for your child. You only, like, you want to give them the best. You want to give them the best education, the best opportunities, and all of that. And in that moment, I was like, shit, I've failed. Like, where am I going to send them to school now? And imagine, I wasn't even a mom yet. I was 7 months pregnant. And that hit home so hard. But of course, like, I mean, in that moment, I didn't even know
You didn't know what it was. Yeah.
but I just felt guilty and I felt like I failed, you know? So, but
That's such like a cutting feeling as well.
Yeah.
Like it's just also because the double down on it is that you feel guilty, and you feel guilty for, or self-indulgent for, entertaining the thought of that guilt.
Yeah.
To the point where you're like, I'm not even going to tell anyone about
Yeah.
this because it's self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a mom. I need to be focused on my kids. How dare I talk about how I feel?
Yeah.
How I feel is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know?
And that also plays into me having gained so much weight while I was pregnant. Okay? Like at some point I stopped counting. 40 plus kilos. I don't know how
which is already
like
90% of your regular body weight.
Like I didn't take any pictures while I was pregnant. I think maybe they managed to sneak in a photo or two.
You said your sister found one.
Yeah, she found one. And it was like, they had pulled out this like little pink cardigan out of my closet. And they were like, Ghada, look, this was like your cardigan before you were pregnant. And it was like a crop top cardigan. And I put it on over my clothes. And I swear to you, if you can picture Chris Farley and Tommy Boy putting on David Spade's jacket, like that guy in a little coat, like that's literally what it was. I was a whale, okay? And instead of thinking, oh, I have a healthy baby growing inside of me, I was like, I'm a fucking whale. I am a literal whale.
I'm not laughing at how you feel, by the way, because I identify with that so much, and it's actually so sad, but that reference is that is still one of the funniest movies out there.
Yes. And rest his soul, but it was just that's literally what I looked like, and I felt so.
Why did they make horrified. You put on this?
I don't know. Like even my family was taken, like, you know.
What the hell did I have to look at this trash out of my?
And I think I mentioned, like, I was so so upset with myself for having gained all that weight that even when I saw people, I didn't think I hibernated the entire 9 months, to be honest.
But even when I on bed rest.
Yeah, I had to be on bed rest at some point. And not like bed rest, but like I just couldn't do much. Like I was spotting at some point and the doctor was like, no heavy duty activities, no lifting of anything, just do the, you know, the minimal.
The bare minimum.
And so, but when I would see people, like they were obviously going to see like a completely different person. I would just be like, as soon as I'd see them, be like, yeah, I took eating for two a little too seriously.
Like how you're like, let me say
like
it
laughing at myself, you know,
like preempting it because you're like, it's easier if I can control the narrative before the attack comes. Yeah.
So,
oh my God, that's so like, and again, not something that you could feel comfortable talking to someone about because they'd be like, listen, like,
be grateful that you have
there's so many women who want to have babies and you're here having one. You should be grateful. You're worried about how you look. What kind of mom are you going to be when? So you can't even like take that moment to legitimize a feeling that is very legitimate.
Yeah.
That's
Listen, mom guilt is a real thing. Like it's not like it's actually even been coined a term now, you know, by psychologists. Like it is a real thing, and maternal mental health is such an important factor. Like they say, like if moms were to go on strike tomorrow, the world would be in chaos.
It would stop.
Absolutely. Like
absolutely.
And I think there's something to say about there's not enough attention that goes into the mental health of mothers, parents.
Yeah, parents in general, for sure. But certainly motherhood, because it is such a different and like unique experience that you go through as a mother. And it is different like from one mother to the next, but there are certain things that you experience with these hormone spikes that bring about behavior, thoughts, feelings that sometimes you're not even sure. You're like, is it just me that's going through this? And is this normal? And and then normal becomes this, again, lofty, unattainable thing that makes you feel worse because you're like, wow, I should be totally, for example, the guilt of not being like naturally maternal,
which is it's a term called the natural mother. Like,
Right.
we as women should be instinctively, or we should have instinctively these motherly qualities already because we are women, which, I mean,
one thing that I have said over and over and over again is, listen, they say natural birth and like C-section birth or non-natural. I'm like, first of all, there's nothing natural about birthing a child, because if you really, really understand, read about, watch what happens to a woman's body during and after birth, like there's nothing that is like, oh, this is so natural, and like perpetuating this idea that, like, first of all, if you try to avoid, for example, splitting your perineum when you're having a birth, like that is already deviating. Yeah. Oh my God. You're like, that's weak. Like you're trying to deviate. I was like, no, I'm just trying not to be like one orifice from bumhole to breakfast. There's nothing wrong with that, or,
trademark bumhole to breakfast.
or, like too posh to push. Like if you schedule a cesarean section, and I'm just like, there's so many nuances as to why women choose the birth plans and journeys that they choose. And there has to be so much grace given to that. But part of the guilt comes from, yes, this expectation that like, you should be pulling your own baby out of yourself in a room temperature bath
without
in your house,
and no drugs involved,
with a drummer in the background and nothing but a doula on call, and then like if you're not doing that, you're made to feel bad for it. And it's like, no, like you're bringing a baby into the world in a natural way, and the natural way is whatever is safest and most comfortable for you and the child. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. That is what's natural. And like, yeah, we've all been victims to it. I remember that when I was having my first child, they make you like write out like your birth plan, because they're like, okay, when you're in labor, do you want like drugs? Do you want an epidural? Like if shit gets escalated, how do you want it to go? And I was like, I've been through shit, like pain threshold high. Yeah. I was like, no drugs.
That's what I also thought.
Literally went in to be induced with nothing but a CD and my laptop.
Yeah.
I was watching Gangs in New York, and I was like in labor, and I was like, I got this. Like, I'm all right. I'm just gonna be chilling.
Damn.
Let me tell you.
How long did that last?
Flipped. About 12 hours in, when they were like, your contractions 30 seconds apart and nothing's happening. Zero progression. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, what? Yeah. Been here for 12 hours and nothing's happening.
It's gotta be something.
They were like zero centimeters. I was like,
same with me.
That's when I broke. Everything broke. Everything broke. Give me the gas.
Yes, give me something. Like... And in that moment, you're like, your body's not doing what it's meant to be doing.
Exactly.
There's nothing natural about our deliveries. It wasn't, our bodies weren't performing the way that they were supposed to be performing. I know for me also, breastfeeding didn't come naturally with the first child. Second and third, I finally figured shit out. But like, it was like
a lot
everything.
Of women suffer through that breastfeeding process,
but like the body, I'm like, my body, nothing about this is natural.
50 years ago, we or our children wouldn't have survived that first pregnancy.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, and that's crazy to think.
It's because of things that people consider unnatural or, invasive procedures that we are here to talk about it. Yeah. Because one of us would not have survived either between our child and ourselves, or neither. And so like the fact that, you would downplay or dilute a woman's experience by saying it's not natural is, in fact, natural, I would wager to say, is the easier way. Yeah. Because you don't have the concern about, wow, there's a needle this long going into my back, and if they hit the wrong nerve, I might not be able to walk again.
Yes, could be paralyzed.
Or it might not work, and I might still feel all 7 layers
as they're cutting through,
as some people do. They're like, there's no going back. We just gotta keep going.
Keep going. Just breathe through the pain. It's like breathe through the fucking pain. Are you kidding me right now?
It is so good that you told me that story. And also another friend of mine, Flo, told me that story because she had a baby a year before I had my second child. And she was like, I felt the whole thing, girl. And I was like, what? So I had that fear already in my mind when I went in there and they gave me like 5 shots in.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I still feel my toes. Don't do it.
Do not start cutting.
Yeah.
Do not.
Yeah.
They were like, all right, we're just gonna have to knock her out. And I was like,
man.
and again, like that is not the easy way out because you would want to be conscious and present and everything just happened the way it's meant to happen. But like these are things beyond your control. You do what you can for the safety of your child, but and your own survival as well.
Yeah.
But it's hard that we put this pressure on ourselves and largely like on each other as women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not men who are like, you should have a baby the regular way. Like, how weak are you? I mean, there's probably some men who said that, but
I mean, if you think about it, most doctors that were delivering babies were men.
yeah.
So that also has that there must be something about that too, if you think about it. Although there are, I mean, I don't know when doulas came into play and when gynecologists started coming into play. Like that's a whole other level of history that we would need to look into. But we know for a fact now that male doctors, and that they're just now starting to study the female body. That male doctors just assume that we can handle or go through the pain and that everything is okay.
They have no idea what it's
they
like.
Have no idea.
They don't even know what a period cramp feels like.
No.
They're just like, walk it off. Also, you make a good point, what you said before, which is the fact that there's so much like research that is lacking in this area. Like, literally we can, give an 80-year-old a 4-hour erection through medication, and there's research and funding put behind that. But
women, it's still lacking for
the
women.
Mental anguish that a lot of mothers go through with childbirth, with having a child, with postpartum depression. Like there's so little research and so little effort that's put behind that. It's really heartbreaking that it's something that is considered just, women, y'all can get through it.
Just
walk
get
it
through
off,
it.
like harden up.
And I think, like you said, also that women we're not easy on each other either. I know, like my mom, for example, like she didn't take any epidurals for any of the kids that she's had, and she's had 5 of us. Okay. Legendary. So I remember when I was like giving birth, and I was like, give me the drugs now. Like I really wanted to be, a super mom like my mom, and we can get into the super mom myth in a bit. But she was like, I thought you took Lamaze training. What about your breathing exercises? I was like, fuck the breathing. Give me the drugs. But even that, like, then I felt guilty. I felt guilty, and it was coming from another woman. You know,
still feel, absolutely.
Still feel that, like,
when I asked
here's
for the
another,
gas,
here's another way that I'm failing.
I'm weak, like
I'm failing my child because he's coming into the world completely drugged up, and
which he's not. But I understand.
It was the good stuff, though.
I understand. Or even like pain medication afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because,
I'm breastfeeding, and man,
it's really difficult, and it's hard to break out of that, because I think also we are now coming into an environment where we think we're so progressive in society because, we have measures in place for working mothers. Like, no, they're still not adequate. But because we have some as opposed to none, we still feel like, okay, that's a step in the right direction. We should be able to cope, because women were coping without it.
Yeah.
And then that creates a pressure when you're like, well, I have maternity leave for more than the minimal amount. So I should be able to go back to work and not have to leave work in the middle of the day. I should be able to figure out how I'm going to pump my milk and not let anyone at work know.
Yeah.
Or sit in a meeting and not let my boobs
leak through my blouse.
In front of, like, and the fact that the work environment, or the corporate world largely, doesn't really recognize still, even with these measures taken, the fact that there's so many more needs that we have to be able to do both proves we can't actually. You cannot excel at both.
No.
You can be good maybe on these days at some better, and you can on another day be better at this.
Yeah.
But being 100% great mom, 100% great employee at work, you cannot do both 100% of the time. Absolutely not.
Because we are literally trying to do that in a system that was not set up for us to succeed. And what I was reading is that so these corporate structures that have been put into place were put into place in the 1950s with this idea that there is constantly going to be someone at home taking care of the kids. And that usually fell on the women's head. So now those same structures are still in place. I mean, we're talking, there are countries that still don't have maternity leave, or they have maternity leave. Like in Jordan, maternity leave was like 6-7 weeks. It was something ridiculous.
6 weeks is
yeah,
insane.
I think it might have been 7 weeks, but it's just like you're literally going back to work. And I don't think at that point, I don't think your child still doesn't even recognize who you are.
Yeah.
You know,
they're still tiny.
They're still tiny. And so there's this system that's in place that doesn't have the structural support for us.
Yeah.
So we have women that are doing full-time jobs, and then they come home and they're still doing a full-time job at home. Yes, you have, the partners are maybe in this day and age, and I know our partners definitely help us out a lot more than the average man.
Yeah.
But it still falls largely on us.
Mother. And you have a lot of women who don't have the luxury of a partner.
Yeah.
So there's still not a mechanism to support them if they also want to work, and they need to work even more because it's a single income home.
Yeah. Caregiving is expensive. We just said maternity leave is maybe minimal. It doesn't even exist in some places.
And the thing with maternity leave as well, by the way, is okay, if you have the average, which is 3 months, you go back, most women are still breastfeeding, for example. You have a highly dependent child anyway.
Yeah.
At that point in time, if you want to be a breastfeeding mother, work and the corporate world just assumes that I'm back at work.
Yeah.
I'm not leaking like a faucet anymore.
Yep.
I'm not feeding another person.
Yep.
I have nothing to do except be here for my job. I'm back now. It doesn't assume that, wow, it started a little bit now where you have mothers' rooms where mothers can go and pump, and you have refrigeration where they can keep their milk. But that's still, historically speaking, such a recent concept, and it's still not across the board. The assumption is still that if you're back at work, you're back at work.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens at home. Deal with that at home. If you're here, we pay you to do what you do here.
Yeah.
And we're not going to make that easier for you to do what you need to do at home. So that's really difficult also in the fact that we have a community or society that's moved away from this whole it takes a village, like this community structure where you're close to people who are of support, and like grandparents, family, aunties, sisters, whoever it might be, is a collective. And you know what's weird to me? Like that we, as the intelligent beings or animals on the planet, as we hold ourselves out to be, would move away from something like that. And then you have like deeply intelligent, matriarchal, like animal groups, like elephants, that the community of when a baby is born is so strong that not only do they celebrate the birth as a herd, but like they vie and fight to babysit the baby.
Yeah.
Like everyone has a role. And the fact that aside from like fucking poachers and idiots, like aside from the fact that their numbers have diminished, like this is an animal group that has like existed for so long, and they live long, and they're incredibly intelligent, emotionally intelligent, and that like they would have perfected something that prolongs their existence in their herds better than we have.
That's crazy,
right?
That's crazy to think about that.
Yeah, that they're like, listen, our instinct for survival tells us we all need each other, and that shit has worked for centuries. And we're like, yeah, but we're gonna try something else.
Yeah. And I think we need to go back to that concept, it takes a village. I think we need to somehow embrace that a little more. And I know from my own experience, like I live I lived in Jordan on top of my in-laws. So they were heavily involved in helping us with the kids. But each time they said, we'll take the kids, we'll do this, we'll help you out.
You felt guilty.
I felt guilty. I felt like I'm not a good enough mom.
Yeah.
Like, for them to say, we'll help you out, I didn't translate it as, we'll help you out. I translated it as, you're not doing a good enough job for your child, we'll take over. And that was like, relinquishing that power was so hard. And I just thought, but why? Like, now in hindsight, I can look at it and say, I'm so blessed that my kids were able to have a close relationship with their grandparents, my in-laws, especially that we lost my mother-in-law a year ago. So for them to have had that time with her is so important. But in that moment, I was just like, and I resented them. I literally resented. And my sister-in-law is like a second mom to these boys. And I just thought, but I'm the mom.
What are you trying to do?
Yeah, like it's my job.
Yeah, stop moving it on my territory.
Yeah, and that's how I took it. It's just like how women always feel, like even in the corporate setting, if another woman comes in who's as talented as you, or maybe has a little more, you know,
a little more anything,
cuter, you feel like, funnier, oh shit, she's encroaching in on my territory. I need to be an asshole. I need to be a bitch. Like, this is not cool. I went into, attack mode. Not like, thank you so much.
Territorial.
For supporting.
Yeah. And it's hard because like, that's also a discussion that we're not encouraged to have as women, to be able to say to someone when you're in it, to be like, I really almost resent my in-laws for coming into my space and da-da-da-da. And like the reaction would be, most people would be like, you're so lucky. Like you had help and da-da-da. Even now, I can say at sometimes I do feel that. I'm really quite hesitant to reach out. I, in fact, don't. To my in-laws for that help. I'm really, 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 I would say I have an aversion to it because I'm just like, well, yeah, okay, I can understand if it was my parents, they took care of Dante for so long. But there's still a guilt of that. Well, why should I be doing things in my life that take me away from my task of motherhood? What is it that I'm doing? I'm going to a basketball game with my man. I feel guilty about that. Because now someone else has to watch my child. Why am I going to a basketball game? Is it life or death? No. I should be at home with my kids. Like, that's the knee-jerk reaction. But on the flip side, that it's necessary to do things for yourself. But
we have to look back then and say, where did that pressure originate from? Like, is that something that, because it's patriarchal societies, like it was put in place by our forefathers, our ancestors, whatever you want to call it, that we're like, the women stay at home, women take care of the kids, like that's your job and nothing else. Like, where and why is it that we're still feeling that now in like 2025?
We are perpetuating it as the women. But I think the originators of it were men. As you mentioned before, you had these doctors back in the day. Most of the men who dealt with women's issues were doctors. And if you read some of like old medical journals about what these male doctors presumed women were dealing with and what they considered them, like they classified like a woman being sexually unfulfilled as like being erratic behavior. I won't even talk about the remedies that they that they applied in some cases. But like in some cases they even drugged women and were like, you need to calm down. I'm like, so is it her fault that her man is just not hitting the spot for her? Like,
women going through menopause were labeled as hysterical and needed to be put into like insane asylums or something. Literally, just to like institutionalize, or like put on like
some heavy duty
medication
and
like
or
lobotomies. I don't know if lobotomies were performed on them for that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think
crazy shit.
I think lobotomies were the solution for everything at one point.
Just cut a piece out. Let's see what happens.
Let's see.
And the weird part of it is that like these people were trusted like unequivocally. Like women were like, oh, well, you're a doctor.
If a man says it, it must be true.
It must be true. This guy in a white lab coat is talking about it. It must be true. And so like women would, and because we're so like adaptable, I think women were like, this is the way it is. We have to find a way to survive within these confines.
Yes.
Okay, fine. We are in a patriarchal.
Patriarchal.
I can't talk. Last week this happened to that one society, and we have to find a way to survive within it.
Yes.
We are in a society where no one's going to give a shit about how I feel emotionally.
Yeah.
My emotional well-being is irrelevant.
Mm-mm.
I need to find a way to survive. I'm not going to get any sleep. Sleep is important, but I'm not allowed to sleep, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. So I need to find a way to survive.
Yeah.
And as we were just talking before, like your body is so adaptable in that it says, okay, you're not giving me what I need, but if we can only do it with 50%, I'm going to find a way to try and survive with 50%.
Yeah.
And so we're pushing through, and all the while we're getting sicker, we're getting more tired, we're getting more irritable. And all that medicine or science tells us is you're getting crazier, you're getting more erratic. Up your meds, up your this, up your dependency on, the healthcare industry. And ultimately, there's no research actually put at finding the root of it. And then we perpetuate it because we say, well, there's that mom who survived it.
Yeah.
Why can't I?
Yeah.
Or you're lucky, at least you have da 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 da. Could be worse. Harden the fuck up.
Always gotta take
so
that.
So we take not only like survive within it, but we like fly the flag for it as well. We're like, okay, we got to do it. Like, and I got to tell my girls, you got to push through it too. And then we become like the reason that it still exists. And yeah, that's really difficult to try and dismantle because ultimately we can try and dismantle it from our end, but it's so deeply rooted, so deeply ingrained. Even in us as we have this discussion.
Yeah.
There's still mom guilt that we discuss sometimes, like randomly during the week. And we're like,
we can't escape it and the problem is that we're aware of it. You know what I mean? Like we're aware of it and we know that we need that self-care. We know we need that time out for ourselves. And I feel like we maybe need it more sometimes than men. That we could also argue that too, but I think maybe also men are better at taking it.
Yeah, I think
and we almost feel like we have to ask for it. For permission.
Yeah, and I think there's a more forgiving reception for men taking it.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a while ago when we were saying that men, like a man who stays at home with the kids.
Bravo. Chapeau.
Oh my God. Oh, he's babysitting the kids this week. No, he's not. He's the father. You don't babysit.
They're your people. You're taking care of them. Like
fathering. You're fathering. But he gets a round of applause for that. Whereas generally, and I'm generalizing, whereas women, we, are expected to just, and I'm guilty of it too. Like if I see a kid that's like unkempt, I'll be like, what's his mother doing? Like I judge the mother.
Yes. When I see a kid who's an asshole, I blame the mom too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the kid is probably spending, and this is a broad assumption, but is probably spending a lot of time with the mother. So if you've got like a kid that's not well behaved, that isn't very nice to, and not by kid, I mean like older kids. If we have like teenagers or 20-year-olds who are assholes to women, I immediately go to what was the mother doing while she was raising her child?
You know what I mean? Not raising them.
And not, I feel guilty for saying that, but that is my go-to assumption.
Yeah.
And it just shows how tough we are on each other.
So deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
And that same like really strict yardstick we apply to each other, we apply to ourselves. Because like, for example, even with discipline, when it comes to like gentle parenting versus how we were brought up, the non-gentle parenting, like obviously you have an inclination to bring your kids up the way you were brought up, but also if you've done some of your work and grown, you're like, maybe I won't be taking a leaf out of that book and I'll apply something else. But you also now tend to judge yourself even with that, because let's face it, it's on the job training. You're bringing up your kid, and every kid is different. You can't apply the same rule to all your kids. So you're always on the job training with parenting, and you're like, well, does this work? Does this not work? And you're hard on yourself when maybe you're such a disciplinarian and you're like, oh my God, like, should I have not said that? Should I have not? And so at the same time that you're dealing with that moment of self-reflection, life happens where you can't finish that thought, and you're required to respond before you've even resolved whether or not how you responded to the last incident was appropriate. You're required to respond to the next one. You're required to know exactly how to, like, fix that problem.
Navigate.
Yeah. And God forbid that's something else that you're like, oh, I'm not sure of how I handle that. Now you have this pileup of all these things that are question marks. And you're like, meanwhile, I don't know, like, am I?
You gotta smile through it.
Yeah, I gotta smile through it, because we say the man is the head of the household, so he's the roof.
Yeah.
But the woman is the four walls. So without her, the roof can't stand up. And she's the one that creates the warmth and everything, and insulates the whatever vibe you have in the house. So if you're unhappy, guaranteed.
It's
the
felt.
household. Yeah.
It's felt through the house.
Yeah. And so you're like, I have to like, keep it together. But at the same time, what is the expectation? When do those unresolved things then get dealt with? And then what happens with that buildup? And at the same time, you're trying to tell your kids, let it out, share it with me. Don't let things build up. It's not healthy. Don't mind that I'm doing the same shit back here. But
that's irrelevant.
Irrelevant. But please, like, and then, let me take on your pressures. Give them to me so that you don't have to deal with it while I'm still carrying my own. And it's very difficult. And that's where I think the community comes into it so much. And not so much like, yes, it can be immediate family, sisters, mothers, brothers, aunties, whoever, what have you, but really, really close, trustworthy people. And what I want to start calling your herd.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of a herd are not genetically related, but they become like family. They become literally like, they see each other as blood family.
Yeah.
With elephants, not every herd, but and I think that's just such a good example of how we should interact, where there's trust, there's mutually like assured benefit for everybody. Whatever I'm doing for the benefit of everyone, because I know everyone else is doing the same thing. So everyone thrives collectively.
And lean into it, because it's really is such a blessing when you have that.
Yeah. And asking for help,
it's not a sign of weakness.
I know I'm saying it and I don't really fully believe it as I say it. Like, I know it, but like, I don't feel it either a lot of the time. Also because, we spoke about this too, delegation is a task in and of itself.
I mean, we want, honestly, at this point, it's not just about sharing tasks. Like, I think we want also people to just take on the task without us having to tell them what they need to do.
Right.
Because just having to organize all that, like, and there's a term for it called cognitive labor. So as women, we take that on because we are organizing the household, planning, trying to organize birthdays and lunches and play dates and
uniform and dinner, and are you going to get to this on time?
Yeah.
And then you have that,
and be attentive to everyone's needs, and and it's just,
and still look cute for your man, and still like find time to like,
and it's so much that goes into that even when we're delegating tasks, we're still thinking, what's going to happen tomorrow, and how do we do tomorrow better than what we did today? And like, our partners will put their heads down on their pillows and just like pass out in 5 minutes and be snoring, and we're just still replaying the day in our heads. Like,
I'm looking at him snoring like sleeping deeply.
We love you guys. We love you. Honest to God.
It's just the jealousy. I wish I could sleep that deeply.
That's just.
But yeah, even in the delegation, you still have to think about how to break up those tasks. So you still have to think, okay, well, is this something that can be done without my supervision? Yeah. And in most cases, the answer is no. And so because you find that out the hard way, because you delegate it, then it doesn't get done, and now you have double.
Yes.
Because you have to rectify and then still do the task. So sometimes you're like, you know what? Even delegating it is just not worth it.
I'll just do it myself. There's a little power control
A little bit, maybe. But like the point is like there's legitimacy in those feelings of overwhelm. Like there is legitimacy to it. And the fact that we as women especially are really insensitive to each other and ourselves about it has to change. Because the mom guilt thing, it only has one purpose. It makes everything harder.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that comes from that. Even if you're like, oh, well, the mom guilt made me, get all this stuff done and push myself harder. No, because now you're going to burn out. Now you're not going to have the capacity to be patient with your family. You're not doing something that you needed to do for yourself, which is ultimately depleting your emotional or physical well-being. Like there's always going to be a repercussion. And so like doing away with that, being aware of it, being sensitive and kind and graceful to ourselves and each other about it, and being okay. I can't even say it.
Let's hear it. Come on, you can do it. You can do it.
Being okay with asking for and accepting help, whatever
it looks like,
comes in. Yeah, whether it's a therapist, whether it's talking to a friend, whether it's sharing something that might be really difficult for you to share at the risk of being judged, whether it's embracing a meddling in-law, whether it's,
we're not calling anybody out.
No.
This is just hypothetical.
Yeah, and it comes in many different ways. Like understanding that help comes in many different forms, in many different packages, and being okay to ask, reach out, or accept that is really important. And
that's so important.
Yeah, you were an individual before you were a mother. That's what we forget.
And I think that's another struggle that we go through, is that identity that as soon as we become mothers, we completely change.
We're just mothers.
We as women go through several milestones in our lives where we're constantly changing, everything from, changing schools to graduating to getting your first job as an adult and then getting married and then having kids. Like we're always going through different milestones and the same goes for men, but there's something about once we become a mother, we are no longer
liberated.
We're no longer celebrated, and we become just moms. That's the thing that I think as women also is that we struggle with.
Sad.
And I think there's also what happens is that we also try to cling to who we used to be, as opposed to embracing who we are now and rediscovering a new version of ourselves. So you're never going to be the same person. I'm not the same person I was when I was 5 years old, when I was 10, when I was 18. I'm not the same person. I have changed. I have evolved along the way. And so I don't know why it is that once I had the babies, I was like, oh, but I still want to be the old me. No, like I am a new me, and I need to embrace that and love that.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to forget that I'm not just a mom. Like, I had friends, I don't know if I'm pretty sure you went through this, because not all your friends had kids at the same time that you
even
did.
Currently, yeah.
I had friends who were not moms, and I made it a point, and it could be like, this was a negative and a positive. I made it a point not to talk about my kids when I was around them.
Friends that don't have kids. Yeah, I've done that.
And then I've even adopted that tactic with my friends who are moms, because I don't want to be just a mom. There's so much more to me. But my friends who didn't have kids only saw me as a mom. So the only thing they'd ever ask me about was my kids. And I'm like, no, like ask me about my dreams, ask me about my aspirations, ask me about my goals. I still have those. But because I was never asked about that, I literally was pigeonholed into this mom box. And it's like you lose yourself. You completely lose yourself.
Such a good point as well that I hadn't thought about is, people will also just see you as a mom. Like literally only like communicate with you in that context.
Yeah.
And when you're hanging out with your girls, that's your escape.
Exactly.
You're like, this is me being me. Like I'm not trying to yeah, I'll maybe like, thank you for asking about the kids. They're good. They're great. They're cute.
1, 2,
all of
3,
that.
done.
All right,
Let's
now
move
can
on.
we?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I need to talk to you about my own shit as
Yeah.
well. So that's actually something, yeah, I had not thought about. And yeah, it also is part of the grace. It's not just from other mothers or mothers towards each other. It's also like women or part of that community who don't have kids
Mhm.
that need to also help you like reclaim,
Yeah.
not reclaim, retain
Retain.
your identity of who you are. And that's exactly right. You're never going to be the same person that you were before.
But you are somebody outside
You
of being
are.
a mom.
You have a dimension of motherhood that helps you evolve into this woman
Yeah.
that you're becoming, who's a mother, who's still someone who has hopes, dreams, aspirations, likes, dislikes. You know, you're still like a person. Even when I say it, it's almost like absurd in my conscious brain. It's like, wow, like, yeah, when's the last time I asked myself, what are my aspirations now?
Yeah.
Most of mine are like, I want to be somewhere that's good for the kids. I want to do this for my kids.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that this happens for the kids. I want to like for the kids. It's like
where's Lisa in there? Where's
Yeah.
Ghada in there, you know? And
Yeah.
it's just so important. I think that's another thing that you can take away from this is it's so important for you to rediscover or reinvent who you are,
Yeah.
because there's so much more to you than just being a mom. There's nothing wrong with you having that layer of being a mom, but there is more to you. There are some women I know who say, I'm a mom and this is it. I live for my kids, and that, if that works for you, that works for you. But I'm telling you,
I don't know how many people it truly genuinely
yeah,
works for them.
and I'm like, we're being real and honest with you. Like, it's not enough for us just to be
I don't think
moms.
It's really enough for anyone.
Yeah.
Truly and honestly.
Yeah.
I think there's something that's lacking, and maybe they're just accustomed to living without. And
they're trying to convince themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe,
and like I said, women, we're adaptable as fuck. Like, we will make it work. You see some of the shoe looking busted ass men that women will marry, like women are adaptable. We make it work. I'll learn to love him, you know?
Oh, you're killing me.
It's just the first example that came to mind.
Yeah.
But really, on a serious note, like, women are the ones that have to learn to adapt, and we do. We make it happen. We make it work because we're nurturers.
Yes,
we do. And that's like a double-edged sword in some cases. You are better at all aspects when you have healed all aspects and acknowledged all aspects. Rather than saying, well, I have to like suppress this for this. And I know there's only 24 hours in a day. I really wish we had like 30. It would make it much better.
I think even if we had 30, we'd be wishing for 40. Like, there's always we always feel like there's not enough time in the day.
There's not. And so I know that like you can't always do everything that you want to do right by your family and by yourself in a day. It's just not possible. Yeah. It's also like a beautiful thing, because I think kids learn so much by imitation and observation more than what we say to them. So if your kids see that, yes, you're a present parent, but you're also like giving importance to things that you love, that you're also pursuing passions, like you're inadvertently instilling that in them and letting them know, listen, you should pursue your passions. You should, respect what it is that you love and put work into it and have acknowledgement for your mental health and your emotional well-being.
I love that you said present parent, because I think what we are trying to do is be the perfect parent. And in being the perfect parent, I think that's where we as moms, as women, suppress all of what we might be feeling just so that we can kind of get shit done. And do it perfectly, regardless of how we are feeling or what we're, what's going on inside of us.
Perfectly.
And when we take perfection and add it to the equation, I think we stop being present, because there's something about perfectionism that really just like kills the joy of motherhood. Because honestly, like, And I know
Motherhood will tear that ass
Yeah,
up. If you try to be perfect, it'll be like, oh, really? You think you got this? Hold my beer.
And I know that because I am a recovering perfectionist. And if shit didn't go perfectly, like it rocked my world. Like I was always so stressed out. And when I was stressed out, I was disconnected from the kids. Like I couldn't feel, or I couldn't be with the kids the way that I should be. And that in turn just put me kind of like in a zombie state. Like, okay, let me just make sure that everything is at least set up for them perfectly, that they have their play dates, their lunches, their dinners, their meals, they go to bed at the same time. Everything is perfect, but whatever's going on inside of me, like just suppress it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I started to like, I don't know if resent is the right word for my kids, but maybe started resenting myself. And I just was not, I was completely disassociated from my kids.
Contempt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really makes you look at your life and you're like,
is this
oh my
it?
God, this is it.
And that for me was so like, unhealthy.
The rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
So I'd rather be a parent who's present and is failing all the time and lets my kids see that. Like I've broken down in front of my kids. I've, you know, like they've seen the rainbow of emotions, you know, from me. And I'd rather that they see like the real raw,
that you're human,
that I'm human.
Yeah, that you're human, and that, you know what, you can break and rebuild.
Yeah.
That they know that, you know what, Ma broke down that time, but damn, she picked herself up and she got it together and she did this. And I can tell her about this thing that broke me because she's going to help me know how to fix it. And that, I think, is such an important way to bond as well. That's courageous as hell.
Yeah.
It's courageous because it's scary.
It is scary.
It's scary.
I agree. Okay, so I think what we can take away from all of this is that just remember that you are functioning inside of a system that was never built for you to succeed. And that guilt and that pressure and that burnout that comes, like, I think what you need to take away from that is you're doing the best that you can with what you've been given. And you know what? You're allowed to want more for yourself.
Yeah.
You're allowed to ask for help. You're allowed to redefine what a good mom means and not what society has told you what a good mom means or looks like.
Yeah. And to understand that you're a mom and a woman.
Yes.
Or whatever you identify as. You're an individual and you're a mom, and motherhood is but one aspect. And just remembering that you're an individual beyond motherhood.
I think that's beautiful. I love that. Before we end this episode, we did want to tell you about our upcoming episode. Lisa, do you want to give them a heads up about
a synopsis? So we have one of our, I think we've mentioned before that we were going to have a few guests on the show as well. So we have planned to have our first guest speaker on our next show. So in the following week, who is a coach and also a fitness coach. But I think also a lot of what he does is lifestyle coaching as well. And he's someone I actually know from high school back in Kenya, but he's based in the US now, and have followed a bit of his journey as a fitness coach, now building a business around what he knows and his knowledge and coaching other people into a better, healthier lifestyle. So he's incredibly inspiring, great speaker, great platform. Actually, if you want to check him out before he's on the show, his handle, I'll put that right here. Ben Neal is his name, and he will be on our show next week, and that will be a good one, I think, to tune into.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning into this week's episode. If you feel this resonated with you and you want to share it with somebody who needs to hear, that she's not alone in this journey of motherhood, please do.
You are not alone.
You
in
are
this
not
journey
alone.
of motherhood.
I love you. And as always, keep showing up for yourself, not perfectly, but powerfully. Like, if that's something that we can leave you with.
Bars.
Yeah.
Nice.
So until next time,
Bye.
bye.